Hello, everyone. This is Big Please Podcast. My name is Jakub Polewka. I'm a huge music fan, and together with Łukasz Wojciechowski, who is a guitarist, we have this podcast. We're both Polish, so most of the episodes are in Polish language, but every now and then we do invite our musical heroes who we interview in English. So please follow and subscribe to us so that you're always up to date with what's cooking on our interview front. And also, please subscribe and follow to our wonderful guest today, guitarist based in Nashville, who is a studio legend, J.D.Simo. Okay, Łukasz, make the introduction.
Yeah, sorry. I will read because I was really I focused on it. I really care, and I'm just so thrilled that you're with us because I'm overwhelmed with your playing, with everything you do,
Oh,
man. It's like
man, thank
I
you.
disco-
That's so
I
sweet of you.
discovered you 13 years ago at least when you were like in your home playing the Les Paul with the Marshall Plexi, the old video.
Wow.
And I thought, oh my god, I need to. And because of that video, I also bought my first Marshall hat, to be honest.
Oh, man. What'd you get?
I bought
What'd
an.
you get?
I bought a 90 like it was a reissue. It wasn't like vintage one, so it was 1980
Okay.
1987 X, and I've modded
Yeah.
it because it was extremely overdriven. So I removed the bright
Okay.
cap and made it like
Yep.
and I bought an attenuator, which is like you shouldn't
Yeah.
do that, but I was living in a
No,
block
I
of
get it.
flats, so
Was it a 100 watt or a 50 watt?
a 50 watter.
Cool. Yeah, that's a great way in. Yeah, man. Well, honored. I shoot. I had a lot of years with the big amps. I had my fun. As I like to say now, I had my fun.
That's a way to start an interview, I guess, with Marshall, with vintage Marshalls, right? So,
Yeah, absolutely.
just to let you know, I am a guitar player, an amateur guitar player, and Kuba is like a concert freak, but
Yeah.
I think he's the best non-musician because he doesn't play any instrument, but he really has a great ear, if you know what I'm saying.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah. Right on.
yeah, so
Honored.
oh, the pleasure is all ours. Listen, this is the introduction. I'm sorry, I will read it from my
Do
paper.
your thing. Do
Okay.
your do your thing.
Oh my god. It's an absolute honor to welcome one of today's finest guitarists and musicians. If you're into vintage tones, blues, rock, funk, jazz, rockabilly, country, psychedelia, J.D.Simo delivers them all with style. We've loved his work with the band Simo and solo albums like Songs from the House of Greece, one of Pickle Please podcast's top albums of 2023. Jakub caught JD live with Luther Dickinson and Adam Abrashoff at Jazz Fest, calling it one of the best shows he has ever seen. JD has opened for legends like Greg Allman and Deep Purple, played with Joe Bonamassa, Blackberry Smoke, and Phil Lesh, and worked with Jack White, Tommy Emmanuel, Samantha Fish, and even Buzz Luhrmann on the Elvis biopic. He's touring with Chris Isaak in Europe in 2026 and scored the upcoming film Bruce Springsteen Deliver Me From Nowhere. Please welcome, straight from Nashville, one and only. I have goosebumps saying that, JD Simo.
You're too nice. Thank you for having me. Bless you guys. Jeez.
Oh my.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you for joining us, and I hope we didn't mix up anything in that introduction.
Yeah.
That will.
No, man. I mean, I'm great. I'm grateful, man. You know, as I like to say, I try. I do my best to. I do my best, and once in a while, I fool them.
Oh my god. How are you doing? Because we know like you had like short you're like in the middle of a short break because you're always busy, always gigging, always doing something, and like you're in Nashville for a couple of days, and how are you
Yeah.
feeling right now?
I. Oh, I'm great, man. I'm nice and relaxed, and I've had a little break. It's been uh, the last couple of years have been particularly busier, um, because I'm just hopping from project to project.
Hmm.
It's not like pre-COVID, like I wasn't doing as much sessions, and uh I wasn't producing at all, and I wasn't like, all I was kind of doing was my own music. And so I worked all the time, but it was just consistent. It was just like blocks. But now it's you know uh I'll I'll go and do some shows with Luther, and then I'll come back. Come back here, or go to Savannah or New York or something to play on a record or make a record or produce or something, and then I'll go out and play with Chris Isaak this year, with a bunch of my buddies from the Dave Cobb rhythm section, um, and then go from, so it's slightly more hectic, just because I've got my hands in more different. I'm just jumping from thing to thing, and it's just trying to schedule things where things don't interfere with each other is challenging. So, but yeah, I'm great, man. I'm great. I'm home, and I'll leave on Saturday, and it's a nice day, so I'm sitting out here smoking a cigar, talking to you. It's great.
We're not
Yeah, no,
smoking, unfortunately, but we're having a
That's
blast.
fine.
We're having a blast.
we're having a blast. Yeah.
We're having.
Okay, JD, I know you're very busy, but we want to kind of start at your
What else?
beginnings. So
Okay.
I want to ask you, because you're from that generation then that when you should talk about your influences, they should be basically like grunge or something. But in other interviews I've seen, you mostly speak about music that's earlier, like way earlier than that, like Elvis,
Yep.
Beatles, Rolling Stones, and you
Mhm.
go deeper into like Captain Beefheart and stuff. So how
Mhm.
come?
I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, uh, you know, I did listen to the radio a lot. I grew up in Chicago, in the city, and it was a great place to grow up. I had a lot of access to, you know, amazing, like, I had a great public library that I went to all the time, and had every record known to man, and great old music movies, and documentaries and stuff like that. And I was very obsessive. I went there I mean, I went there weekly when I was, grade school, but I saw Elvis on television, and when I was, I was like, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 or something like that, and saw him on television. I was really taken with him. I thought he was really cool, much like millions of people before me. And I was very taken with Scotty Moore, his guitar player. I didn't know he was Scotty Moore at the time, but figured out who it was. And also, right around the same time, I have three older sisters, and my one older sister, Diane, um, we either she was watching it, or she showed me the Blues Brother movie,
Mm-hmm.
and I was very taken with Steve Cropper. I thought he was really cool. Same sort of thing. And she, her, or somebody in the family, or somebody was like, well, him and the bass player are from this band Booker T and the MGs, and they made records, but they also backed up all these artists on this label from Memphis called Stax. So that was like my earliest, Elvis and then Stax basically are like the two ways that I like learned to play guitar. And um and then um from there it just kind of mushroomed out, because I still, to this day, I love research. I love history. I probably, if I wasn't a musician, I probably would have been like a history teacher or something.
Mhm.
And you know, I always loved reading and watching documentaries and stuff. So I just devoured anything. And music is here's the beautiful thing, about music is, like, when you fall in love with someone, an artist, a band, or something, there's all the things that one entry point will lead to. Like, you find out who produced that record, and then you listen to the other people that guy produced, or somebody else covered their songs, or you fall in love with, other acts that were on a particular record label, or who else were having hit records at the time. So, it was really easy, like, with both those initial sort of influences, to like fan out into lots of just classic important music. Um, and but at the same time, I mean, I was aware of Nirvana and Red Hot, especially the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I love the Chili Peppers and bands like Dinosaur Jr.
Yeah.
And Pearl Jam. Like growing up in Chicago, those were all really big. I mean, there were big bands everywhere, but
Hmm.
those are big bands in Chicago. And Bob Dylan was always in Chicago. The Rolling Stones were always in Chicago. Like throughout my youth, the Grateful Dead were always there to do residencies at Soldier Field. So, a lot of it was just me seeking, and then a lot of it was just, peripheral because I grew up in this, great American city, you know. But that's the nucleus of it.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah,
So,
I think it's very easy, as you said, about this branching out, especially nowadays in the streaming era. Like everything's out there.
yeah, yeah, big time. It's never been easier,
Yeah.
you know, which is, a soapbox I get on oftentimes is, you'd be surprised how many professional musicians in some cases don't really listen to music actively. And that drives me crazy because, you know, 30 years ago, like case in point, like when I first heard the name Ry Cooder, um, Ry Cooder made a lot of records. Okay. And some of them are better than others, you know,
hmm
but it's like, you know, uh, I think I probably got Bop Till You Drop or something like that first, which is not my favorite. But my point being is like how long it took me to be able to have access to, some of the records in that catalog that really influenced. And
hmm
this is one instance out of thousands, tens of thousands. You know, it was a lot harder. You had to like you had to mail
hmm
order stuff back then, and you had to you maybe had to like be friends with somebody who was more informed than you that could like
hmm
recommend something to you. That's when record stores and like I said, this public library that I went to a lot was incredibly helpful with. Um, but nowadays, yeah, I mean, it's like if somebody says some esoteric name, we have access to their entire discography like that. And
Yeah.
you can just sit and in 5 or 10 minutes kind of just pop around and see if anything speaks to you. And so there's no excuse not to essentially like be informed and like have a depthful, sort of exposure to, you know, uh, music, so which is awesome. I love it. I'm grateful.
Yeah. We as well.
We
We
as
dig
well.
in
Hmm.
so many things.
Yes, exactly. I don't know, Kuba. I think it's the right time to ask JD about the cuisine and Polish cuisine. Since we're in Chicago.
Oh, what now?
So Kuba has a
Ask
question.
me whatever
Yeah,
you
yeah.
want.
Kuba has a question. That was my point.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I have a question because we're in Chicago. You tell us how you've been like in your childhood in Chicago, and I found
Yeah.
somewhere that you're a big foodie,
Yeah.
and that one of your favorite places in Chicago is a Polish sausage place
Oh
called
yeah,
Jim's
Jim's.
Original.
Yeah, Jim's is great. I've been going there my whole life. Yeah,
Any other
down by.
Polish connections? Any other like Polish
No, not
cuisine?
really. No, not necessarily. I mean, I have love for basically every ethnic version of soul food I'm game for. But okay, so like the gyms thing, back when I was a kid, Maxwell Street still existed,
hmm
which is the old street on the south side near Sox Park, right near the University of Illinois. Um, that famously, in the heyday in the 40s and the 50s, that was basically like the Beale Street, like Memphis has Beale Street, Chicago had Maxwell Street, and that's where all the street performers would play. And you had, you know, stalwarts who were important to Maxwell Street, guys like Robert Nighthawk, um, and he was kind of the main sort of like king of the street in the 40s, 50s, 60s. But then, Muddy played down there. Little Walter played on Maxwell Street. Bo Diddley famously played on Maxwell Street. It was a gathering place, and for the African American community and the working class people, and especially the flea markets that they would have on the weekends. And when I was a little boy, you know, we would go down there sometimes during the summer, especially for the swap meets. Just buying whatever junk, and the thing that the 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 uh, the food that was like most prominent was the Maxwell Street Polish sausage, which is just a Polish sausage with onions and mustard, you know, and Jim's way, way back was actually on Maxwell Street.
Okay.
And then at some point it moved to where it still is, right off the expressway. And, they're open 24 hours, and it's still rough down there, sort of like, if you go there at 2 in the morning, you need to be somewhat conscientious. I grew up a city boy, so, um, you know, making, it doesn't really phase me, because you just got to pay attention.
Yeah.
Um, but certainly when I was a kid, it was rough. It was real rough down there. And but yeah, I've been going there my whole life, and that's a lovely bit of my childhood. And they also got the pork chop sandwich,
Mm.
which is awesome, also awesome. So yeah. But that's one of my favorite Chicago places. And we used to go. I was born and raised on the north side. Um, but we went to a lot of White Sox games, a lot of White Sox games,
Mm-hmm.
and we went to a lot of Cub games too. But we went down to South Side all the time, so we would eat there. Or there was an old barbecue place called the Hickory Pit that old school Chicago people would remember. It's long gone now, but we used to go to the Hickory Pit on the South Side a lot too, which was right across from Comiskey Park. But
Mm.
anyway, Chicago, baby.
Nice.
Um,
All right. Okay, so my turn to ask you. So I would love to ask you, JD, about Don Kelley Band, because
Sure.
we know that it was like your first major, I should say, job in Nashville that you got.
Yeah,
So like you,
changed my life.
yes, it did, and we know, and well, it's really really impressive because it must have been hard for you because like you took a spot that was previously held by like Brent Mason, Guthrie Trapp, Daniel Donato, extremely gifted, great legends if it comes to guitar. And how did that experience like influence your development as a musician? And how challenging is it for artists to establish themselves in Nashville's competitive music scene?
Um, well, for Daniel took my place.
yeah,
Oh,
it's his
And
sorry.
I
idea.
got I got I
Yeah.
got I got lots of stories about I got lots of stories about that little shit. Um, I've known him his whole life. But I love him to death. Um, but no, I mean, like, I moved to town, um, and I was it's tough, it's hard. It's a small town. Everybody knows each other, and when somebody new moves to town, everybody's usually like more than happy to like check them out and point them in the right direction, or hire them or use
Mhm.
them, because you know there is room for everybody. There's it's I would say that there's a competitive nature, but that it's no different than any people that are performing on a high level to do great work. It's you can't not be competitive, but I wouldn't necessarily say that it's competitive to a toxic level. Like, I don't people don't sabotage each other and stuff like that, but it's like, there's a lot of mutual respect, I think, within the community of guys who work here, and girls. But no, with Don, I'd moved to town, and I was young, and I was skinny and good looking, and could sing a little bit. And so, there were a bunch of opportunities to potentially like have an artist deal and be like a country artist. And none of that stuff worked, and it all just crashed and burned relatively fast, like within months. And I was pretty discouraged and about ready to leave. And I I have this story I've told a bunch of times, but it's like, I was about to be, I was like a month behind on rent in this horrible place I was living. And, and I needed money, and my dad wouldn't help me, which actually was great. I'm glad that he didn't, because had he helped me, the story would end differently. Um, so, I went and played on the Broadway on the street corner, and just figured. Well, I mean, I was feeling sorry for myself, very melodramatic, but also it was just kind of like I didn't know, it was just what I felt like doing. I was like, well, maybe I could make $100 and buy some groceries and stuff. I mean, I don't know what I was thinking. I mean, I was a very different person then. Um, but anyway, um, Dave Rowe walked by and saw me playing on the street, and I'd met Dave through this process of, potentially trying to be an artist,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and Dave, he was Johnny Cash's bass player for a very long time, and many others, John Prine and Dwight Yoakam and Roseanne Cash and bunch of, I mean, he's a legendary. He's no longer with us, unfortunately. But he was a absolute monster. First, top tier A team guy. And he took pity on me, and he was like, "Well, why don't you follow me into Roberts and meet Don Kelley?" And I didn't know who Don Kelley was. And so I walk in and I met, Don. Don's a very gruff guy, very hard uh, he's not warm in any sense. He's very stern and he's very barky, and he's a total sweetheart when you get to know him. If he likes you, if he loves you, he would literally kill someone for you and dispose of the body. I mean, he's an amazing guy. But he's really hard to, you know, and so Dave worked on him like all night to like get him to just even talk to me.
Wow.
And he said, well, Dave says you're pretty good. Eventually, finally, he talked to me, and he said, well, Dave says you're pretty good. Why don't you come back on Sunday and sit in, and we'll see what you do. And so, I so I took the next couple of days and just woodshedded my ass off, and I went back there and I sat in with him, and he threw everything but the kitchen sink at me. Um, just style wise, like, real fast bluegrass stuff, honky tonk stuff, Bob Wills, just seeing what I could handle. And and yeah, and then that following week he started using me as a sub for Guthrie, because Guthrie was sort of on his way out,
Mm-hmm.
and but not quite out. And I started subbing for him, and then about a year later, I finally, he hired me full time, and it just completely changed my life. I mean, because there's a lot of guys that were in the band before me. You mentioned a bunch. I mean, Red Volkart and Johnny Hyland and Guthrie and Brent Mason and Kenny Vaughan, and there's a bunch of guys that nobody talks about, but there's guys like Sid Hudson and Troy Lancaster, and there's other big session guys, Jeff King, that
Mm-hmm.
also played with Don. And and there's others too, but I mean, it's just, yeah, I mean, he became over 30 plus years, he was just always the guy that, whoever a lot of attention went to the guitar player, obviously, because it was like the featured instrument in the band. But, the band itself was like a total show piece for, high level musicianship. And, yeah, I was honored to be a part of it, and honored to be in that pressure cooker of a of a scenario for, the better part of 5 or 6 years. Most of us that were truly in the band, because Don is very Don's very, because a million people have played with Don, subbed for the band, but Don is very old school about, like, he was never in the band. He subbed, but he was never in the band. Like, but all of us who were really in the band, 5 or 6 years, which you do a lot of learning in that period of time.
Oh, listen, this is like extremely impressive. This is like great story. I would love to ask you about those couple of days, this short period of time when you had time to prepare. And I want to ask you, how did you prepare? Because it was different times. You could check stuff in the internet, and
Yeah.
I know because I listened to a couple of your interviews that it was totally out of your comfort zone. You weren't like a master in that style. You had to like learn, maybe not from the basics, but a lot. So how did you approach it?
Um, well, I watched him. I watched the whole night with Guthrie, um, which was, incredibly intimidating. Because the other thing you have to keep in mind is when you're in this band for several years, you're doing it every night. And
Hmm.
so it's like as if you're going to the gym and you've been going to the gym and you've been training for years. So, like, what is hard when you're not in shape is nothing when you're in shape. Okay. So, like, Guthrie, at this time, he's been in the band 4 or 5 years and he's at the absolute peak of his abilities, because you're playing so much,
Hmm.
So it was incredibly intimidating. And, to my best recollection, I think I was just trying to, um, like, just continually trying to play at these crazy tempos,
Hmm.
which really is muscle memory. It is just literally repetition, 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 getting your hands to function like that and just doing it endlessly, like to a metronome or playing to, I think I probably got his CD and play and practice along to it, you know? And so that's what I did in those couple of days is just doing that, just trying to build up a little bit of stamina, but you can't really do much in a couple of days,
Yeah.
Um, and but over the first that first year or 2 years, really, yeah, I just asked Don, and Dave and stuff like what to listen to, Red Volkart was a real big and still is a real big sort of beacon of that kind of music. I don't think anybody has ever really done it better. And I think that that would be Don's favorite. If Don had to pick a favorite that ever played with him, I think he'd say Red. Um, you know, so I paid a lot of attention to Red. I paid, got a lot of Buck Owens records, got a lot of Merle Haggard records. Uh,
Classics.
I loved Emmylou Harris records with James Burton and Albert Lee uh and Ricky Skaggs, like the Live in London record was an influence for sure. I really loved Marty Stewart's playing and Clarence White and sort of the hippie stuff. I loved all that. I loved all the sort of Gene Vincent and the Blue Caps stuff, which is not really what we're talking about, but it also is relevant. And so I just asked and bought tons of records, and immersed myself in it and fought my way through it. Um, there also, I met John Jorgensen later I met him through Tommy Emmanuel because they're really good friends. But Jorgensen also made more sense to me because Jorgensen flat picks everything like I flat pick everything. Okay, he doesn't hybrid pick,
Mm-hmm.
and so Jorgensen, like whether it was Helicasters or his solo stuff or the stuff he did with the Desert Rose Band, that is like a huge influence on my friend Brad Paisley. Um, that was also really helpful because Jorgensen, his approach to playing country music made more sense to me
Okay.
because it was all flat picked
Mm-hmm.
and coming from a person who like grew up loving rock and pop music from the 50s and 60s and blues and stuff like that, like Jorgensen's approach was made more sense to me, you know what I mean? So there was definitely a conceptually influence there too.
Totally.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting because you said this intersection between this kind of like how you play and what you like in a way and what you have to play because you
Right.
have more tendencies to this kind of rootsy, bluesy, Americana, but psychedelic kind of
Yeah.
stuff mixed up with
Yeah.
soul music as well. I have like a feeling, especially psychedelic soul is, as you said,
Big time.
Stax. Stax was your
Hmm.
your super heavy influence. So basically after that period in Nashville, then you've played sessions as well that we
Oh
all
yeah,
know, a lot of sessions.
yeah.
So how does this then happen from this transition from playing that in that band, then to sessions, and then to starting your band called Simo?
Well, it was a gradual thing. Like once you started playing with Don, people were going to start hiring you for sessions. That was just the way it went. Producers and Broadway was very different back then. Um, Now I don't think anybody from Nashville ever goes downtown because it's just a shit show. But
It is. I've been there
but
recently. It's oh
it's different. It's different. Like when I was there and maybe like the very beginning of Daniel Donato's time, but definitely like Guthrie and I have talked about this, that like when Guthrie was there and when I was there was sort of like really the best time because, you know, um when Red and Brent and all them there, like heavy duty people would come see the band in the 80s and the 90s, but they made no money. Like there was no real money to be made. Like they were making a little tiny bit of money, but they weren't really making money. When Guthrie and I were in the band, like there was a lot of people on Broadway and we were making a lot of money, but which was awesome. But still it was easy to park and easy to get around and it was a fraction of what it's become.
yeah,
So you had, so Guthrie and I experienced sort of like the height of like making great money and also like nightly playing in front of really
yeah.
important people in the music business because they want to see who's playing it in Don Kelley's band.
Hmm.
And so yeah, I started doing sessions real fast. And like within, I don't know. I mean, I can't, it's all kind of hazy to me now, but like, probably within the first year or two, I was playing on demos and songwriting stuff for publishing companies and stuff like that, which is like your entryway in. And then, Paul Worley was like the first big producer that started using me on records. And and then he used me, and then Ted Hewitt was another big producer that started using me then. It was all commercial country stuff those first several years that I was playing on sessions. And it burnt me out because I hated the music. It was modern country music
Yeah,
that like was
poppy.
on the radio, and I hated it. And I don't like the genre. I love real country music, but I hate that.
Same.
And so it was very, yeah, so it's just for me it was my time in the band in Don's band was kind of ebbing out. Daniel had been coming to see the band for years since he was like 10, 11 years old, and he'd come every week with his dad Sam and sit right there in front and watch the whole night. So he was very he was ready to take my place because he knew the repertoire. He knew everything we did
Hmm.
because he was there for every week for years. So that was like a real natural, like, okay, I'll leave and Daniel will take over. It was very seamless. And I had met my two bandmates in the original band through playing on records here in town. They had a band called Funk Wrench with Kenny Vaughn that I was a huge fan of, and it was just a local band. They would play around Nashville, but everybody would go see them. They were really weird and cool. And one time the bass player Frank Swart called me because I think Kenny couldn't make it, and I played with him and Adam Abershoff, who works with me to this day, the drummer. And I was like, God, I want to be in a band with these guys. And so we just dove in with it and did it and ended up signing a record deal and doing all that kind of stuff. And as a result of that, I quit doing sessions completely because I couldn't.
Hmm.
We couldn't tour and try and build a life, build a career for ourselves, if I couldn't go out and do the work. So yeah, it was a very natural, thing. And it was very conscientious because I was burnt and I just didn't want to play on music I didn't like. And I had a lot of people in the session world. It was very split. I had half of the old timers, these, you know, legendary musicians. Um, I had guys like Dan Dugmore, the legendary steel player, or Glenn Worf, who is, legendary bass player, plays with Mark Knopfler and stuff. I had those guys and several others, but those guys in particular going, dude, you're 25, 26 years old. Go play good music. Get out of here.
Mm,
You know, like go live your life. Like don't give up a career to have a job was what Dave Rowe actually told me.
Hmm.
Uh, and it was great advice, by the way. And at the time, and then I had all these other guys, which will remain nameless, who were like, you got a good thing going, you're fucking
mm-hmm,
up, you shouldn't do this, and so yeah, so that's how it happened. It was very natural. I didn't, and you're young like that. It's easier to move with instinct when you get older and you got mortgages and you got car payments and you got children and spouses and taxes and all this stuff. It makes it, you know, yeah. When you're in your 20s, it's like, dude, just go do stuff. You
mm-hmm.
know.
Yeah.
So
And then you started
anyway,
going on with your band on crazy
hmm
tours. I've heard something about 215 shows within
yeah,
300 days. Like you weren't even at
yeah,
home.
yeah. We in 2016. We released our first record in like 2011 or 2012 or something like that, and we toured regionally, and we just started fanning out from there, like playing bigger radiuses until finally we started playing national shows, and like did Bonnaroo the first time and did some big festivals for the first time, um and then Frank, the original bass player, ended up falling out and moved away, and so we got Alad Shapiro joined our band, and that was right when we were going to sign the record deal, the real record deal, in 2015. And yeah, 2016 we were gone like 300 days. Yeah, and in retrospect, it was so stupid. Like I blame our manager at the time, and it's just youthful mistakes. Like I just didn't know. None of us knew that we could say no.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just kept saying yes, and it really it brought it destroyed the band. It destroyed our relationships with one another. It destroyed each of us individually. Um, where we sort of limped through 2017, and then 2018 is when we officially like we're done, and I signed a new record deal as a solo artist, and so on and so forth, and everything started slowly coming back together in a positive way. But yeah, it was nuts, man. It was crazy. But I saw the world, I saw the world several times over, that just that one year.
How to retain your sanity? How to,
Yeah.
not only being fresh but being sane and all that.
Oh, you don't. That's the thing. You can't. Especially when you're young, You're young and
Yeah.
stupid and you do dumb things, Which, again, it's the time to do it. Like if you're going to do that shit, do it when you're young, and hopefully you learn something from it. I certainly did.
Yeah. Mm. So how? Okay, I've got the question. Let's talk about good musicians that you love. We know Adam Abrashoff on drums. You've been playing together, working together since the early days of Simo, and you two have been compared to iconic duos like Han Solo and Chewbacca, Kirk and Spock. Yeah, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. How would you describe your musical connection with Adam?
Oh, we're brothers, man. We're as close as uh as two people who aren't actually family. We've been through the war together, and we've seen it all. And he's a uh he's a beautiful person. He's a beautiful musician. He's a very simple man. Um we fill in each other's what I lack he has, and vice versa. Um and it's just we've grown, like the musician I was the day that he met me and the musician he was the day I met him, we're completely different in a lot of ways than we were. And also as human beings, like, I'm very different. I'm nothing like I was then. I was a nutcase. And it's we've grown a lot, I mean, but he's I would say he's my best friend. I have other friends that I would consider my best friend. Um, Adam and I have spent so much time together that, like, we can literally not speak for weeks or a month or two or something like that. And we pick right back up, because we know each other so instinctively. So, but he's just a marvel, and I love getting to work with him still. I'm very grateful that the relationship was never negatively impaired, and we trust each other, and it's just we come back together and have a great time, and it's easy, and there's no drama, there's no weirdness, and it's easy and enjoyable. And he, you know, especially now because I'm involved in a lot of different projects with lots of other people that I love and care about. To come back and drop in and do stuff with him, it's just a beautiful recharge. It's like going home.
Right, the projects. It's funny that you mentioned it because, like, every part of your speech, like, connects with our questions. We just listen.
Good.
It's awesome. I'm really curious about your album with Luther Dickinson, "Do the Ramp." Uh,
Hmm.
you perform some absolute blues classics by legends like Junior Kimbrough, Johnny Hooker, Bobby Charles, J.J. Cale, Arl Burnside. And how did you decide on this repertoire, and what does this music mean to you and the band?
We didn't put much thought into it at all. We booked a couple of days. We set aside some days. We did a pickup gig here in Nashville. Um, we did two, actually. We did two pickup gigs just for fun, just screwing off. And we're like, man, let's pick a couple of days and come over here to my place and see if we can, cut something. And so Luther and I both know a lot of songs, and we both are really big fans of taking the lyrics from something that we love and sort of rearranging it. And so they were just what we tossed out and thought was cool, in the moment. There wasn't a lot of thought put into it. And uh we did that a few times. We did that, I think, for a day or two, and then maybe we came back a month or two later and did another day or two or something to that effect. And we had a gaggle of stuff that we cut, and then Luther and I think he and I spent like a day culling all through it, and then like maybe, and I know we edited a bunch of stuff because some of the stuff was like crazy long, and we just sort of edited it and trimmed it down to presentable fashion. And then a manager that we both work with a lot um, pitched it to some people, and they came back and they wanted it, and it wasn't the plan, it just unfolded naturally. And then we had to figure out how to play shows because we're busy, and that's challenging to this day. I mean, we've got some stuff coming up throughout the year, and we've booked some stuff next year as well. But it's difficult getting our schedules to coincide, and also it's like, oh, our schedules coincide, and we got offers to play these places, but Luther just played that market with the All Stars, or Luther's going to play that market with it. So there's all that other kind of
Hmm.
stuff that makes it complicated. I'm becoming less complicated because I'm touring less and less on my own accord. I kind of go out and have fun almost as a paid vacation. Um, but And anyway, so that's that. And then to answer your question, I mean, Luther and I are we're very different people, but we come at things from a very similar place. We both are very depthful music listeners and sort of pseudo historian kind of bullshit, and we know how to we have vast knowledge about minutia and so yeah, I mean it's all the stuff that we really love, but we just both of us love to improvise and we both love to jam and we love all the same music, but we we also don't play anything alike. Like it's a really beautiful he and I never have to worry about sort of smashing into each other musically because we just have very different phrasing, very different tone, very different preferences. We're very good two guitar team in that way because we are alike enough that we completely fill in the gaps with each other, and then we're different enough that there's never a clash, and that's a special thing. There's bullshit there, that's there's a lot I work, there's a lot of guitar players I've worked with, and there's a handful that are I just close my eyes and play, and there's no thought at all that goes into it, and it works. And Luther's one of those.
Hmm. I
Mm.
have a request, please. If you like, record 30-minute blues classic, 40-minute. Don't edit it, don't cut it, just upload it. We will love it. We will buy it.
Oh,
We will live it.
there's tons of it. Let me tell you, Luther
Uh,
always jokes about hitting the 20, meaning that when a jam surpasses 20 minutes long, we hit the 20 all the time.
That's
yeah, I've
great.
seen it on the show. I've seen it on the show. It's like that, guys. You just like kick it and then it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. I actually wanted to ask you because that's your like most recent album, but it kind of like you also
Hmm.
touched on the covers on the previous one, which was the songs from the house Grease, where you even played like
Hmm.
Afro Blue by John Coltrane, and it kind of connects with the fact that I also know that you have like less obvious
Yeah.
influences, right, for the sort of like let's call it now like a psychedelic blues soul kind of thing, because you are also influenced by, first of all, John Coltrane, but also Afrobeat legends like Fela Kuti and Tony Allen and Ornette Coleman,
Oh
and
yeah,
you could see
big
that
time.
kind of on your recordings and when you approach the cover. So I actually wanted to know how much kind of like is channeled of that influences. I mean, I sort of hear it, but from your perspective, how much you mix these genres into what's the final effect of what you play.
I mean, it's not very conscious on my part, but uh, my listening taste is what informs what I end up playing, and so my listening taste, you know, I probably my daily listening is probably jazz, and has been for years. That's what I listen to without any, and it's specific, but not ultra specific. Like, it depends on my mood, obviously, but it's like anything classic, prestige, impulse, blue
Hmm.
note. I'm in, regardless of the artist. I mean, I have my favorites, of course, but I'm a pretty open palette when it comes to the sounds of those records and the musicianship and the sensibility and the phrasing, and I don't really have a preference whether it's highlighting instrumentally, whether it's highlighting saxophone players or whether it's highlighting the piano player or whether it's guitar player. Guitar player I probably listen to the least in the jazz idiom. I mean, I love Kenny Burrell a lot, especially
Oh yeah.
the first introducing the first album is probably that, and Soul Call are probably my two favorite Burrell records. And I love Wes Montgomery. I probably love Grant Green the most, especially the funk. stuff from the late 60s and early 70s, that stuff is always very present. So I probably guitar wise in the jazz idiom, Grant is probably the one I listen to the most. Um, but that being said, Harold Vick and Cannonball Adderley and Ornette, you mentioned Ornette,
Hmm.
uh, Wayne Shorter, records like Adam's Apple and Juju, they're all that's stuff I listen to all the time. And I've also listened to a lot of classical music these last couple of years, Debussy and Rachmaninoff and Chopin, like just listening to piano concertos and stuff like that. Just as sort of a palate cleanser, you gotta, if that makes any sense. Like all this music to me is like a palate cleanser. Like I'll sit and I can, if I'm tinkering with something or I'm drinking my coffee or I'm whatever, it's like these are, or I'm driving in the car, it's like these are things that just sort of permeate my brain, and they inform it and inspire it, but it's not aggressive, aggressive music or anything that's too um forceful. Uh, I don't really listen to any rock music because I've listened to so much of it
Hmm.
that it's in there, but it's like I don't really listen to rock music, so there's that, and then I listen to lots of old, like I always end up coming circling back every few months and listening to Lightning Hopkins or um Reverend Gary Davis or um there's lesser known guys like Lonesome Sundown was a guy from Texas, or Lil Son Jackson is another guy, or Frankie Lee Sims. Um, that's a lot of the Louisiana guys uh, Slim Harpo and Lightning Slim and stuff like that. I love listening to that. That stuff I always kind of circle back to. Um, and then yeah, the Afrobeat stuff. I mean, Fella and I mean, Tony obviously was his drummer, but he made great records as well. But that's just another thing that I just never get sick of. So like all that stuff is very sort of omnipresent, you know, and other stuff maybe it'll drop in, like the last year especially or so, I've sort of come back around to country music. And like I've gone through several, like big Jimmy Bryant, the original Telecaster player. I've gone through several phases of like really being obsessed with his records from the 40s and the 50s um and like Haggard records and uh you know it, and like Ronnie Hawkins records that James Burton played on in the 50s and stuff like that. Like I've come sort of full circle. And also playing with Chris Isaak, Hank Marvin and the Shadows and the Ventures, and then there's all these other more obscure surf records
Yeah.
from the 60s that he's really into, that there's some instances where there's a couple records that I really like that like are bands that didn't exist, and it's the Wrecking Crew guys. It's like Ray Pullman or Tommy Tedesco or something making a surf record at the end of a session, and then they put it out. Like, so there's a lot of that stuff that I've kind of, and Dwayne Eddy is another person that
Mm.
I've sort of come back around to, and Bo Diddley, because those are all things that like sort of inform my work with Chris, because that's like the approach that really works for his music. um so but yeah, and soul music, I mean, Stax, anything Reggie Young ever played on is a bit, Reggie was a friend, and he's a huge hero. But that's kind of, that's a wide sweeping thing of like where my tastes, like normal listening, sort of lie, you know?
I'm
It's
laughing.
funny how close to ours is it.
Yes, listen,
Yeah.
I'm laughing my ass off because we have like devoted listeners, and after every episode, we put links to the music, to the facts, to the Wikipedia, to the artist, and Marcin, I salute you, our dear listener. Like really listens to all the stuff we talk about, and after this episode he will have a lot of on his plate, mate. Really a lot, and we're
Good,
loving it, and we're loving it.
good.
This is just awesome. This is just awesome. uh I would love to ask you about the evolution of your sound. You started out in a more jam-oriented, slightly psychedelic space, but over time your
Yeah.
music has leaned more into blues, soul, and roots influences. Sonically, you've also shifted, moving from a cleaner guitar and amp setup to
Mhm.
incorporating a wider range of effects and textures. How do you view your own musical evolution, and how would you describe where your sound is today?
It's a good question. It's just whatever is inspiring at the moment. Like it just uh it's just whatever I'm into. It's that's how it's changed. Like I was playing through Marshalls and jamming and stuff, and I was really into Free, and I was really into you know um the Allman Brothers, and really into Cream and Blind Faith and all that kind of stuff. And then uh I started working with Phil Lesh, and that inspired me to sort of be kind of dead like, more dead like for a minute, because that's what I was doing. And I was like, I went down that well working with Phil, and came out with a whole bunch of inspiration, um, for that. Uh And then, it's sort of the last several years, like when I made songs from the House of Grease till now, it's become much more of, my slide playing. I sort of found this approach that is very heavily influenced by like steel, and sort of like George Harrison's approach to slide. Um, where, before it was very much informed by like, guys like Dwayne Allman or something. And now it's much more of I don't know, single notes and kind of, I don't know, like I've found this thing that I really like, the approach to slide guitar that I really like, which is very influenced by like chromatic use, which initially started with like listening to guys like Earl Hooker, but then like, sort how do I explain this? Like I always have loved Ry Cooder, but I didn't want to make the mistake I've made in the past, which was like completely devote myself to like sounding like Ry Cooder. So, he would always talk about Ralph Mooney, the great old steel player, who played with Waylon Jennings and many others. But so I went back and I started listening to that, and like a guy named Hop Wilson, who was a guy from Texas who played non-pedal steel. And I grabbed a couple of things from that, and that informed this sort of where I now still live with slide guitar in particular. And then just listening to so much jazz, um, there's a lot of jazz sensibility that's sort of crept in the last several years. And so like right now when I pick an instrument up, um, it's sort of, you know, sort of jazz phrasing, and maybe some of the more outlandish harmonic uh, complexity, mixed with mixed with steel, and mixed with sort of this style that I also am very attracted to, which is very primitive, which is very, much like John Lee Hooker, or R.L. Burnside, um, or Muddy, before he was playing in a band, that kind of
Hmm.
Dead Thumb, Lightning Hopkins. So it's like that. That's very much where I think I've kind of ended up, and it's the natural evolution to something that is more just me cherry picking things that I think are interesting, and it's not been a conscious thing. It's just what's happened, you know.
Yeah, I think Łukasz, because you're talking about your, especially the slide technique you have. I think Łukasz wanted to ask you about your slide technique and the tone in it,
Hmm.
You know what?
because it's
Yeah,
Sure.
unique.
I wanted
Thank you.
I I wanted to say like a compliment because you sound you have like something in common like Alan Holdsworth. Like people that
Oh wow.
think about Alan Holdsworth because Alan Holdsworth doesn't sound like he listened to guitar players before he's like when he started learning guitar.
Hmm.
And this I
Yeah.
find the same thing with your playing slide because like you're so different. You have your own voice, but it has like to do with your playing. Like I mean, the articulation, everything is like different. So I hear like people that inspired you, who inspired you, but it's so different. It's and I think you're not playing slide like for maybe not. I don't know how. Sorry, I lost words. But how long do you play slide? It's not that long, I think.
No, not in the grand scheme of things. I mean, I was I was probably 24 or 25. So I mean, it's like 15 years now.
It's nothing.
But
It's nothing. It's nothing. Slide.
well,
Oh
I mean,
my
it was
God.
hard. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. But yeah, I appreciate it, man. I did, the biggest thing is realizing um, I made a lot of music, like in those first couple of records and like the first solo record I did, you know, where I'm really good at mimicking things that I'm really into. I'm really like when I get into something, I can really ape it really well. And that's a blessing from a session player perspective or, whatever, because it's like I can replicate things and I can hear stuff and I can sort of get to the heart of it. But like from an artistic standpoint, it's a terrible thing because it's kind of useless. You need to do something that is your own. And so like with Slide in particular, it was going out and touring and seeing that every town has a kid that is trying to be like Derek Trucks, basically, and much like every town has a kid who's trying to be like Stevie Ray Vaughan still, and going, okay, that's covered. It got me into playing and taught me how to do it, but now what can I do? And so it was just looking around and being conscious of trying to find some different stimuli. Earl Hooker was a real great sort of uh thing that pointed me in a different direction, because he didn't sound like a harmonica player, playing slide. Even though he's playing blues, he didn't sound like a harmonica player, which
Hmm.
is like kind of where the nucleus of Dwayne style, Elmore James, you know, that's the nucleus of that style is where the guitar is essentially doing what a harmonica does. And yeah, just like I said, like conceptually hearing Ry Cooder talk about steel and then also knowing, okay, I could easily go down this Rye Cooter road and really, really get inside his sound and his touch and his phrasing and stuff like that. But knowing that that wasn't gonna give me what I was looking for, it's like I should almost listen to his interviews more than I should listen to his music because I should listen to what he's got to say
Exactly.
and take the advice without, and so that's just an age thing, so it's like that's the difference between me at 24 years old and me being 34, 10 years old, you know what I mean? So anyway, but I appreciate that, man. It's something that I really like, and something that I do on records a lot, which is my favorite thing, is with a volume pedal playing fake steel
Hmm.
on records. I do that a lot, and I love that. I love steel guitar. I know I could never get, especially now at 40 years old, I know that like, I could spend the next 25 years and then be a 65-year-old man who's maybe okay at it, you know. But it's great, it's great influence, because it's a beautiful instrument. It's very emotive, you know. So anyway.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting when you said about that you can easily copy things, but you sort of make a conscious decision not to and to come up with something different. But there
Yeah,
is
or yeah, or at least when I know that I'm heading that direction, it's like just stop.
Yeah.
Just play what comes to you, not, oh, I'm gonna do this. Because there
Mm-hmm.
is a mental game. So anyway, sorry to cut you off.
No, no,
Continue.
no. It's a, it's an important remark. But where I was headed is there is a part of your job where the copying is
Hmm.
crucial, which is the soundtrack works that you do, and where
Oh
you
yeah. All right.
like. We just want to say, for instance, you work on the movie Elvis, where
Hmm.
you kind of you recorded all the parts of all the
Hmm.
guitarists that kind of show up
Hmm.
in that movie, which are many. This is not only
Yeah. Yeah.
Scotty Moore. This is not only
Hmm.
James Barton, but this is also like his influences, BB King, Sister
Yeah.
Rosetta Tarp, and so on. So I
Yeah.
actually wanted to ask
Hmm.
you first of all, how did you get into the soundtrack in general? Like, what kind of like made you started? But and also, when you work on such a project where you need to imitate, how to kind of approach this and how to be unique in every single of these different guitarists that you try to imitate. Is it? Yeah.
Well, Dave Cobb called me to work on it, and Dave and I had known each other for a long time, but we never worked together. And in the time that we'd known each other, like I met him when he had just moved to Nashville, and we were like guitar buddies. We'd screw around and mess around with old guitars and vintage guitars and amps and pedals and fuzz pedals. And we were buddies. And then he became this huge producer. And um and I hadn't really talked to him in a while, but he called me and he said, I'm going to start working on this Elvis movie. I'd like you to be involved. And I was like, yeah, I'd love to. And so we started with sort of pre-production work, which, he formed this band, myself, Chris Powell, who's in Chris Isaac's band with me now, Brian Allen, who I just worked with yesterday, the bass player, and Philip Towns, the keyboard player, who I also just worked with yesterday. And the four of us became like his rhythm section and have for years now. Like inadvertently, he like formed this band that now we've done dozens and dozens of projects, records, singles, movie stuff, commercials, all kinds of crap. And so anyway, uh, it started with just pre-production work, and then it went on for 2 years. We worked on that movie for 2 years, and it was a lot of sessions, and a lot of sessions, and we would get, he'd let us know beforehand, especially me and Philip, um, if there were specific things like, okay, we're cutting these Elvis songs, or we're cutting these Hank Thompson songs, or we're cutting these Hank Snow songs, or we're cutting uh a bunch of soundtrack stuff that needs to sound like the Wrecking Crew, or like we would have our homework previous, which is not how sessions ever go. All other things that we do, we never know what we're walking into, and we show up and have our cup of coffee and they tell us what we're doing and we go do it. But with the movie stuff, it's so specific that they'll let you know. And it was great because I would just do my homework the night before and walk in knowing what I needed to accomplish and do the best I could. With the Elvis movie, it was really easy for me because it was all stuff that was just right underneath my hands. It's all stuff that
Mm-hmm.
was very, very primal to me, to like in some cases how I learned to play the instrument even. Um, and artists that I was very deeply aware and understood. And that's part of the reason, this is what a good producer does. It's part of the reason why he hired me. He knew me enough as a person at that point that he knew that all the things that were required were all things that were really close to my heart. And uh, so yeah, we just did it, and it was tons of fun, because we had, not only were we working on stuff that was super fun that we all enjoyed, and in my case, in some cases, it was just like literally playing my heroes, literally just playing the part of my hero, in many cases. Um, but we had, the Warner Brothers big, huge, $200 million budget movie that like we could
Insane.
get as crazy with trying to get things as authentically correct equipment wise and sonically, and like we were able to do what most people never get the chance to do. I mean, it was so fun, you know and we took it really serious, and you know, and it was great. And you know, inadvertently, the four of us, the musicians, and Dave, you know, we formed this nucleus of a working team, a production team that exists to this day. You know, and you know, it was a huge life changer for all of us. You know.
Yeah, you basically became Elvis's band in a
Mhm.
way.
Yeah, I mean, like I when I finally got to see the movie with my wife, um, you know, it was very emotional because it's like, well, that's the closest I'll ever get to playing with him, you know. And I mean, like, you know, certain sessions where we had to retrack band stuff with Elvis's real vocal and he's in your headphones, you know. It's it was amazing. You know, it's something that I'll never forget.
This is an awesome soundtrack, man. This is an awesome movie and an
Oh,
awesome
thank you,
job.
man. We had a lot of fun with it.
Speaking of heroes, idols, Bruce Springsteen.
Yes.
Bruce Springsteen. Yeah, he's our idol, definitely. You recently finished work on the soundtrack for Deliver Me From Nowhere, a film about Bruce
Fresh.
Springsteen and the making of Nebraska. I'm not
Hmm.
sure how much you're able to share without stepping into spoiler territory, but I'm curious.
Oh, I can talk about a good amount of it.
Okay.
Okay.
Are you once again stepping into the shoes of multiple guitar players, or is this project more focused strictly on Bruce's playing and tone? How does this experience compare to your work on the Elvis soundtrack?
Well, huh. I mean, it's the same in that we're working on, you know, a huge budget, you know, big movie that you know, has a stupid amount of pressure connected to it. Um, but the the really the role I had to step into for for the whole thing was Bruce. Because essentially the problem, and I'll try and explain this as best I can, is there's um like the original multi-tracks to Nebraska, you know, the um the movie is purely about the making of the record.
Mm-hmm.
And his the book that came out, you know, 3 years ago, Deliver Me From Nowhere, it's the book, you know, and there's the multi-tracks are very primitive
Mm-hmm.
and they're very lo-fi, and there's AI that exists now that was created for the Beatles Get Back project that can separate things out,
Mm-hmm.
um, and make things into multi-tracks that aren't multi-tracks, okay?
Yeah.
And the AI is getting better all the time because the more information that's fed into it, the better it gets. So vocals, when they're isolated, are incredible. Like they're perfect, pristine. You can listen to them on their own and they sound incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Instruments are a different story.
Mm-hmm.
They're really good in context, but because so much is just acoustic guitar and vocal and harmonica, acoustic guitar just by itself doesn't sound convincing. And especially if it's going to be blown up into Dolby Atmos surround for a movie, it doesn't sound right. So the hardest part for me on the music for Deliver Me From Nowhere is I had to go back and replace everything. And that includes all the mistakes, all the speed up and slow downs, all the little flubs. I had to
Wow.
go at times, you know, two or three bars at a time to try and absolutely duplicate what Bruce did.
Oh.
Now, you think to yourself, okay, this is simple. They're simple songs. They are. But when you're trying to match something that is so erratic, like if it was just strumming through the song, fine, we're good. But he's changing strum patterns. It's all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it was a horrendous amount of work to do that. And so there's that element of it. Then there's like other stuff that was used as like part of the score. And then there's live stuff in the movie that in some cases we recorded for the first time, and in some cases we were given live tracks from, that time period that were never released, and we had to, go through and we needed to fix them, and get them so that it would make Bruce and the E Street Band look their best. And there was a lot, and that stuff was a lot of work in some cases too. Um, so yeah, with the Bruce thing, it was just getting inside him, you know, and it was hard. And aside from that, the music side of it, really early on in the process, they asked me offhand if I could potentially teach Jeremy, who was playing Bruce, to play, and because he'd never played guitar before. And I've never taught anyone how to play. And but I thought about it, and I was just like, well, I think I can. I think I can, you know, I can try, I mean, I can do my best. And that was a whole nother thing that was, really hard work, with him on an almost daily basis, for months and months and months, and then through all of production, working with him, trying to get him through, because the reality of the situation is like you're not going to get a person who's only played for 3 months. You're not going to get them to actually be able to do it. So you have to figure out how to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
And you just got to be very systematic about it and break it down and just try and figure out what is actually possible and what isn't, and try and make it so that the audience will not be pulled out of the movie, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And Jeremy and I got really close, super close, and I love him dearly. He's a fucking great man. He's a great man, and a good pal. And he did an incredible job and worked. No one will ever understand how hard he worked.
Mm-hmm.
But I know how hard he worked because I was with him. And so there's that. And then the other element of the Bruce movie that was new was I they wanted me on set for for whenever there was going to be music content filmed, which is a good part. It's probably 70% of the movie or 60 or something. And it was a lot. It was, probably, I think it ended up being, I was on set for 25 or 30 days or something like that, spread over like 3 or 4 months. And there would be days where like maybe I'd be on set for 2 days, but I'd stay in New York because there'd be 2 days off where they weren't shooting music stuff, but I'd be there prepping with Jeremy because then we were going to do a big one on Monday or
Mm-hmm.
something like that. So like I was just commuting to and from New York for months, doing this. And so when I was on set, though, I instinctively, the first day I was on set, we were at this rented house in Jersey shooting scenes, that were, that are basically when Bruce is writing some of the songs. Those were the first scenes we shot when I was there. And I instinctively, with Scott, the director, and Petey, the script supervisor, I just started taking notes on every take of like what was correct and what was not correct. And I went to Scott after the first setup and I said, well, there were things that were incorrect, and do you want them? And he was like, yes, please. What were they? And so there's a master sheet of notes that go to the editor. That's the script supervisor's job. So all of my notes would then go into Petey's notes for the editor, for Pam, the editor. And that then quickly, so then I'm at that, now I'm tied to the monitor with a headset on doing that. And then in between takes going and prepping Jeremy and then coming back and doing script supervision stuff. And that quickly bled over into me noticing things in the set dressing or something that's incorrect, or like a musician wouldn't do that, or a
Mm-hmm.
musician wouldn't set a guitar like that, or a musician wouldn't um no, the capo should be sitting here, or no, you don't, no, in a Princeton reverb you wouldn't be plugged into the second input,
Mm-hmm.
and by the way, the knob should be set like you would set it, like little tiny details that I just, as because you're starting to watch the monitor and you're starting to notice everything. And so then I started working with the props department and the set designer. And so very quickly then it became like I would get there in the morning with Jeremy. I would always ride to set with Jeremy. And then I'd go on set and look at all of the stuff and basically like pick apart what was correct and not correct. And especially like when we got to the studio, when we got to the power station in New York, that's where the last thing we shot was like this big stuff at the big live stuff at Meadowlands Arena. So by that point, I'd been on set for months, and I had a great working relationship with all the crew, and I was actually, when we were designing the stuff for the arena stuff, um, we had meetings where I was sitting there and I was like, well, no, that's not what the PA would have been in that
Mm-hmm.
era. That's not the
Wow.
console that they would have had. And no, that's not the drum kit that Max would have had. Max always had a Ludwig tom mount, even though he's not playing Ludwigs. And it's right behind Bruce, so it's right in camera. So that's, all these just on and on and on and on and on and on. I mean, I have hundreds of pages of notes and shit. And But the studio stuff was in particular, because we were doing it actually at the power station, which ironically I've worked at many times. Actually, the first session I ever did in New York City was at the power station. And uh so there's a disconnect sometimes, like with the set designer, because like they'll have like in one case, I'll give you one example. Like there was a picture, okay, that she had of Garrett Talent, the bass player, and it was very clearly a staged photo,
Mm-hmm.
okay, in the studio. And so she set it up like that for the session. And I walked in and I said, well, why is the amp over there? Put the amp here. This is where the amp would be,
Mm-hmm.
and put this microphone on it. Oh, no, wait. Okay, that one was DI. Okay, don't put a mic on it. Put the DI where we can clearly see it, and an old DI at that, so that's very clear.
Wow.
And put the road cases over there because that's where they would be, and get all that crap that is modern equipment out of the shot, and so on and so forth. And she like had an argument with me because she'd had this thing like staged, and she's like, this is the photo, like this is, and I'm like, yeah, but it's out of context. Like that's not him working. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's him in this room taking a photo with it, but that's not. And she was like, no, but it's perfect. And I'm like, no, you don't understand what I'm saying. Like this is not, that's not a photo of them working, and it wouldn't be there.
Yeah.
It was there for the photo, so this is how some of these things happen in movies, that it's like you have to have some level of practicality of someone who does this to go, no, that's not how you would. And then there was a whole thing about, because Bruce tracked all the vocals in the sound booth, but of course, for cinematic reasons, they want him out on the floor. And I'm like, well, that's not realistic. Like he would be, put him in the booth
Yeah.
where he was. That's the booth where he cut the. And they were like, no, we need these shots and we need everybody in the shot.
Mm.
And I was like, well, okay, then we need to put gobos up, you know, because if you're going to do this, don't make it look stupid. Like at least put gobos in front of amplifiers and stuff. And then that was a whole thing where it was like we needed to get old gobos, and then I showed them how it would be, and then of course they wanted it less so that they could have bigger sight lines and stuff. And so like we came up with a compromise, but it was that whole thing of like trying to make it, you know, trying to all the things that would make it not, and again, you're spending $100 million on a movie. These are things that should be correct. So and the smallest amount of that is like, what is the right equipment? What is from the guitars and amplifiers and the type of cables and the type of microphones and the type of cymbals and the synthesizer, like getting the CS80, which is a $200,000 synthesizer now that was very important, but there's only like one of them on the Eastern Seaboard, and it was super expensive to rent. And I was like, well, but it's the sound of Born in the USA. It's the sound of Dancing in the Dark. Like you
Wow.
got to have it, you know. And then there's like 200 faders on that thing, and so like I went online and found the preset for it, and like went and So I mean, it opened up a whole new thing. So it was a lot. I worked very hard on that movie.
Yeah, that sounds absolutely insane. It's like kind of like the people that do it have no idea in a way how it should
No,
look
some of
like.
them, no, some of them do, and some of them don't. It's just you have to you have to have somebody that's very musically minded. So like if you have a set designer or you have a script supervisor that's like musical and like understands, they will catch all those things. But it's like in this case, it wasn't. Like there was a lot that would have gone by.
Under
You
the
know,
radar. Yeah.
yeah, and I took it very seriously, and Scott, the director, greatly appreciated it. He was like, no, he was like, whatever JD says, do that. And he was very, uh, you know, and then we'd shoot all the music stuff, and he'd be looking for what he was looking for, but then he'd immediately look at me and go, was there anything wrong? And I'd be like, second verse, that's not right, blah blah blah. But this is great, and like, just so we'll see. I haven't seen the final cut of the movie, but like it's all in the notes.
Cool.
I think you're lucky because there wasn't like an accident like with famous guitar from Martin and Kurt Russell. Do you know the story?
No, I don't
You
know
don't
that
know
story.
that
What is that one?
story. Kuba, do the honor.
No, no,
Jacob, do the honor.
So
please.
Tarantino movie Hateful Eight,
Yeah.
they rented, I think, like I don't remember exactly, but at least 150 years old Martin guitar.
102,
Oh my
like
God.
one of
They
the
took it from a
oldest that was
museum.
ever made. That was
Wow.
120, yeah, something like it. Sorry.
Good
And
Lord.
there is a scene
Yeah.
in which I don't remember which actor is it. Do you remember?
Kurt
Wukash?
Russell. I mean,
Kurt
Russell,
Russell, yeah.
himself.
He takes that guitar and smashes it on the wall and breaks it. So they had two guitars.
Yeah.
What?
Two.
Yeah.
They had two. They had like a fake and they had the real one. So they were shooting with the real one for as long as it was not the scene where he grabs it and smashes it. And then they were like swapping the real one for the fake one. So that was the plan, but he exactly didn't know about it. So in the movie, the cut that exists is he grabs that guitar and it's the real one and smashes it and destroys it on the wall or on the pillar or something. Well, everyone in that room does like no, but it's a real scream of no,
Yeah.
because it's the real guitar.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
Yes.
And they just
That's
destroyed it.
insanity.
Yes. Yes.
They destroyed it.
It's funny because Kurt Russell did some couple of interviews about it, and the funny thing also is that Martin had this policy that they could rent a guitar for movie purposes and all that stuff, but after this incident, they changed the whole policy, and it was like a legend. It became a legend, and during a NAMM show like a year ago or 2 years ago, they let's just say they finally like used the glue to show it to the to people, like to people that were at NAMM, the actual destroyed Martin guitar destroyed by Kurt Russell.
Oh my God.
I
That's
checked.
oh that's Oh my God.
1870s, 1870s
Yeah,
guitar, so 145 years
yeah.
old.
Unbelievable.
So good,
Jesus. That
good that
makes,
you've
yeah.
been around.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because we had the one guitar that was on set that was really kind of almost priceless was Bruce had given Jeremy
Mm-hmm.
a 50s J200, um, just like his that he used for Nebraska. And that's in the majority of the shots. We had some replicas for when that guitar wasn't on set or something, when it was like long shots where maybe it's like leaning against a chair in the and all that. But even still, like there were things that I would find. Um, anyway, yeah, just little things that I would, you know, alter, like because there was a couple of little tiny things on the replicas that didn't match the old one,
Mm-hmm.
and I had props like take care of it, because I was like, well, probably no one will ever notice this, but
Yeah.
you see this right here, I don't even want to call them to attention because then you'll see it probably. But no, it's a thing, man, it's a thing, you know. Uh, Luckily, most of the equipment that we're talking about, with the exception of that one synthesizer and that one guitar, a lot of their gear in those days was pretty run of the mill.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't, uh, like Bruce was still playing through Basemans, tweed Basemans. There's tons of those out there.
Yeah.
Um, Steven Van Zandt was playing through these horrible piece of shit Yamaha amps that I'm sure Yamaha was just giving him, and we had to find them. Like I had, props find them somewhere, God knows where. And a lot of it was junk by today's standards. The PA, like when we had to build the PA for Meadowlands, they went to some company in New Jersey and they were sending me photos of all of the columns of speakers, and I was like, no, those are too new, like that's
Mm-hmm.
stuff from the 90s. I was like, you have to literally find the stuff that's garbage, that like is just, I'm talking about like actual tweeters that sit on top, like, it's crazy. It was like, give us all your junk. Give us all the shit no one wants.
Did you get to meet Bruce?
Oh yeah, he was there every day. He was there every day. Sat next to him every day. He was really great. We had a great time together, and got to do some sessions together. And yeah, I mean, I was sitting next to him every day, and he's a great dude, man. I walked into it not a huge fan, believe it or not. It was never like something that really like hit me hard. Um, but he's such a good dude, man. Like it's such a you can't not love the dude if you're around him. He's just so polite
Mm-hmm.
and generous uh and cool. Like I mean, he's a cool fucker, man. And it was great. Patty came, his wife came one day. Actually, oh, this is crazy. We had 2 days to shoot a bunch of shit at the Stone Pony in Asbury Park, and it was awesome because they redid the inside to be exactly like it was back then.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it was which is not too different, but it's different, and it's really cool because it just you walked in there and it was just like, wow, this is funky and cool. And so the first day we were there, second day we were there, Steven Spielberg came to hang all day, and because him and Bruce are friends. So I'm sitting there, with Scott and Petey in Video Village, and it's like there's Bruce and Patty and Steven Spielberg, and you know, and Dave. That was the one day Dave Cobb was on set, so Dave was there, and it was just like, what the? Me and Dave were both like, Jesus, what a freaking crazy. Like I have a photo in my phone that like I could never share because it's like the worst thing you could ever do when you're doing these types of things is take photos of any kind. Like that is absolutely off limits. But I couldn't fucking handle it. I couldn't stand it. I was like, I have to take a photo of this because this is just too fucking crazy. You know, talk about you're going to need a bigger boat.
Wh-
Wow.
when I listen to
Wow.
you, oh my God, you must have learned so much because of this experience with the movie.
Oh, sure. Oh, sure. Absolutely. But, I think it's really what it comes down to is it's the same sort of skill set in making records. You just make yourself useful. When you see something that can help, um, people are really good at stuff, you just do it. There is no sort of semblance of, well, that's not my job. It's like, no, if you can be helpful, be helpful, in a way that is not condescending or douchey, but it's like, uh I yeah, I mean, I just instinctively wanted to not sit there with my thumb up my ass. I wanted, if I could be helpful, I was willing to work hard and be helpful, and they greatly rewarded me for it. You know, greatly.
Yeah,
I
they
mean,
need
I'm
the constructive
working.
critique. I mean, otherwise, if you don't care, if if you don't care, then it's just like, okay, they could have also had nobody on the set then, in a way. So
Well,
it's if you
yeah,
go
and I
into
mean,
such a
but
project with a heart.
well, my attitude, like here, like there's the two bosses from Disney, these two women that have become really, really good friends of mine, and who I'm still working with on other stuff, which is an amazing, um, fortuitous part of this whole thing. Is one thing leads to other things. But it's my attitude was very much like, you're paying me very well to be here. Let me do what I can do to try and help. And the big boss Danielle from Disney, she saw everything I did, and she took incredibly amazing care of me.
Mm.
And uh she appreciated that I did everything I could. And sometimes that happens. And sometimes people notice, and sometimes you're rewarded for it. So it's groovy, grateful.
We will be grateful for sure because we're pretty sure the movie is awesome and the soundtrack is even as good as the movie. We're blessed with it. We'll be blessed with your music. I'm pretty sure there are legends about your work ethic, so it must be good, man. It must be.
Oh, I appreciate it.
Uh, I
Ah,
would love to ask you about, oh my God, vintage gear, vintage guitars.
sure,
Um,
sure.
what's so special about them to you? Vintage guitars and vintage amps and pedals.
Well, I think my attitude has changed a little bit, mostly because I've acquired some new stuff that is as good or better than some old stuff, and I can talk about that as well. But no, the initial draw is, electric guitar is one of the rare instances where, like, right out of the gate, things were kind of designed perfectly. Like
Hmm.
Leo Fender, with the materials he was using and his design process, it's not been bettered. You know, the stuff he made in 1954 is nobody's done it better. Okay. And same with Gibson, Rickenbacker, Epiphone, Marshall, um, Vox, whatever. There's a reason why so much amazing equipment and audio equipment too, consoles, tape machines, microphones, um, great tools can make great things. Now, shit tools can also get the job done, but there is you look at, like, okay, like if the Beatles are like the pinnacle of like record making,
Hmm.
it's like, okay, you had A plus material by an A plus band that had incredible talent, songwriting, and then you had these incredible engineers that were using primitive technology to the full maximum, but they also were using from microphones and the consoles and the outboard gear that they did have access to. It's the best stuff that was ever made, and they were using it to the best of its ability. Well, okay, that's literally that's the sum of all of its parts equals this, you know? And so I think vintage instruments, there's vintage instruments that aren't that great.
Mm-hmm.
They're not all great. Um, but when they're great, they're special, you know. So I think that's kind of the best way that I can bring a synopsis to it. Since COVID here, prices have gotten so ridiculous
Yeah.
that I think it's unfortunate because it just means that they're not going to get used. They're not going to, great tools are just going to be, you know, um, that I think is unfortunate and silly too, because at the end of the day, it's just stuff,
Yeah.
you know. Um, I'm pretty desensitized to greatly expensive pieces of gear, because I've been blessed where I've had so much exposure to lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of like, crazy expensive instruments, amplifiers, whatever. And you know, I mean, a good one's a good one and a bad one's a bad one. And any of them will do. But when you do connect with something, that's what's important, you know? And it can be anything, it really can, you know.
I will.
Just trying
I
to
will.
talk reality.
No, I'm sorry. I will show this part of this interview to my dearly beloved, and that's why I need a vintage Gibson ES335, darling. Yeah, that's the dream. That's the dream. Yeah.
Well, of course, man. I mean, and if something brings you happiness and inspires you or something like that, more power to you. It's not, that's good stuff. It's when things get excessive that things get stupid,
Yeah.
and then I have a problem with it,
Exactly.
because it's not, you know, addiction is addiction, whether it's, putting heroin in your arm or coke up your nose or alcohol in your bloodstream or, why do you have 300 of this? It's just why do you have 300 strats or something? It's just that's silly. It's stupid, There's people starving in the world right now, you know. But if you have a handful of things that really inspire you and bring you
Mm,
bring you joy, then that's great. That's being in balance. That's great, you know.
yeah.
I have a problem with the crazy, bloated, you know, because most of my heroes, also it has to do with my attitude towards that is most of my heroes had an instrument or two or three or something, like throughout their career that like they were identified
Mm-hmm.
with, most of my heroes, regardless of their instrument too, you know. There's great drummers in history that it's like they had their set of hi-hats, like Elvin Jones, he had this one ride cymbal he loved, like you know, that's what you should be looking for. The thing that like helps you commune with the spirit world.
Well said. Well said. Beautifully.
Yeah, I think you sold it to Łukasz's
Yeah.
girlfriend. So I think now it's an easy way to convince that this vintage
I
Gibson
have one
is what you
strat.
need.
That's all.
Okay.
I
All
love
right,
it.
that's great.
I love it. It will remain with me till the end of days. I love it, but I know what you mean. Someone really like clever musician told my colleague that the best instruments are those the ones that you like have the most the like you keep the once again the best instruments are those which you keep like for the longest period of time that are
Hmm.
with you like forever.
Yeah, yeah, and I have a couple of those, and it's but I'm a very serial what they call monogamous. I'm a very monogamous musician. I typically have one or two things that I use for long periods, and then something else finds its way to me somehow,
Mm.
and then I'm very inspired by that, and it's happened a couple of times, in my life, in my career, but not that much, you know. I don't really have. I've got like I usually hover around 9 instruments,
Hmm.
which is a fraction of what most of my peers have. And and it's not a, everybody's different, but I usually have my little gaggle of things that are what I like and what work for me, and then a couple of utility things that I need for, working, and and that's about it, I've never been a guy who really needed or wanted much, you know.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if you have this inspiring kind of elements when it comes to the gear, like you have your set and Łukasz has his beloved Strat, it is kind of like, as you said, all these heroes, they have this known guitars, right? It's like Blackie for Eric Clapton,
Yeah. Mhm.
or BB King's guitar and so on. So it's this kind of like element that makes you recognizable as well for the audience. They
I mean,
know, oh, like, yeah, it's getting that guitar.
oh yeah, yeah, no, there's definitely, yeah, I understand what you're saying. I don't think that ever should play the part on, like, on your end of it. It should just be what works for you. But yeah, I can see where that comes into play, because yeah, it's fun. We look at who we like, and we want what they want, And which is, I say that, I think it's important to try all kinds of stuff. Because you never know what might work for you,
Hmm.
you know, and but you should never use what somebody else uses just because, you know, because everybody's hands truly do sound different, and what works for one person might not work for another person, but that at least gives you a benchmark of like something to try. Oh, I should try that, I should try that amp, I should try that setting, I should try that pedal, I should try, that's how you hopefully over time whittle down and find your handful of things that suit you, you know. And sometimes you just fall bass backwards into it. Like, it's important to remain open, because most gear things that I sort of have stuck with for long periods of time were things I sort of somewhat stumbled upon. It's not like I was looking for them, you know. They just happened to cross my path and was like, wow, this really is great. This works for me.
Mm. Okay, JD, we have a question for you that we ask every single person that we interview, because I
Okay.
think it's an important question. What's the best piece of musical advice you've ever received, and who gave it to you?
Uh okay. So this is something that has really helped me, but it's not a piece of advice that was necessarily given to me. It's something that sort of over time I witnessed, like, was an energetic path to stuff working out. And that's just to always say yes. Like, your have your being not be in a place of either, oh, I don't want to do that, or oh, I don't know if I can do that, or something like because that's a negative. Like, some people, no matter what, and there's friends of mine that I work with that are very successful, that, like, no matter what is going on, they kind of, there's like a negative response. My attitude in general is just, I'm down for anything. I'm open. Yes is my answer. You know. Um, and it's not necessarily like, uh what is it that I specifically want. It's just, I'm down for anything that the universe has
Mm.
to throw my way, and I will do it to the best of my ability, because all the years that I spent sort of setting goals and trying to reach them were very kind of difficult. They were difficult emotionally, they were difficult. I didn't enjoy myself as much. I didn't enjoy myself at all a lot of the time. And, most of the time I'd accomplish whatever these said goals were. And then you accomplish it and you're like, Well, now what? You know, and it's not, nothing's going to make you happy. You decide to be happy and do what you hopefully learn over the course of years of your life, like the things that bring you joy and the things that make you happy, and you do those things, and don't concern yourself so much with uh, uh, the sort of self-generating nature of trying to achieve. It's like just do what makes you happy, be happy, and as opportunities put themselves in front of you, you do the best you can with them, and just say yes. I mean, case in point, like with the Bruce movie, it's like I was hired to play guitar. You know, that's what I was hired to do. And I could have easily, when they said, "Can you teach Jeremy?" I could have easily said, "No, you should hire this person because they're a teacher." But I was like, "Well, all right, I'll give it a shot." You know, and that led to them wanting to have me on set, and this whole other thing happened. That's a very clear example in my life of where I didn't fucking foresee that happening, and I certainly didn't say, "Oh, this is something that I could do," on this big Hollywood movie or something like that. Be that important in a production. Um, but I just did the next right thing in front of me and seized the opportunity and was good, easy to work with, and answered my emails in a timely fashion and showed up on time, well rested, and wasn't a pain in the ass, and just all common sense stuff. You know,
Mm.
So just say yes, be cool. Don't be so concerned and don't take things too seriously because life is short. Enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah, always be open to new opportunities because you never know kind of what this will bring. Yeah.
No, you don't. You don't. You know, and nothing ever looks like you think it's going to look, for the good or the bad. So you might as
Mm.
well just roll with it and be groovy. You
Mm.
know. And I think, going back to COVID was a really good, it sort of proved to me that I could get together with friends and make music and play music and enjoy myself. And none of us were getting paid, none of us were, but it's like
Mm.
I did it to have you know.
Mm.
I played music and did music to have fun. And I think that helped a lot, like since then, where it's like I sort of through COVID, it was like, okay, what are the things I need to do to be happy,
Mm.
and uh they stay with me. That it's like really I just need to every once in a while be able to get freaky with my friends, and I could do that in my studio down there with no one watching, and eat lunch and have fun with them. I'm doing that tomorrow with a bunch of my buddies. They're coming over. We're gonna play some music and probably smoke a cigar, and you know, it's it's my version of going bowling. You know? Mm.
Yeah. Okay.
What's next,
Cool.
JD? With your plans, with your dreams? What are you thinking about? Well, music projects.
Uh,
Not only that, of course.
um, well, I mean, I've got uh, the good fortune of having, like the next year of my life pretty well set out. Um, at least the nuts and bolts of it. I mean, I'm going back out with Chris Isaak. We've got a long summer tour, and then we've got a winter tour that we're doing later in the year. And I've got a couple of runs with Luther and Adam, which will be fun. And then I've got another tour with Adam in the fall with our buddy Tab Benoit that we do all the time, which is a lot of fun. There's several records that I'm gonna play on that are booked. We're gonna make one of them. We're also gonna make a new Chris Isaak record in the fall, amongst other things that I'm playing on. There's some stuff I've got to produce. between now and the end of the year, there's another big movie project that I can't talk about that I'm already working on,
Awesome.
Cool.
which is very exciting. When I can talk about it, it's going to be a while, but it's another really big project. And uh, there's tons of music that's been recorded. I've got most of a new record finished with Luther.
Oh,
Yes.
I've got yeah,
Yes.
and I've got most of a solo record, and then I've also got a record that I made with my buddy Adam Levy, the great jazz guitar
Oh,
player from Brooklyn.
fantastic musician. Wonderful.
We made a record together, that's done, and also me and Tal Wokenfeld, the great bass player, we've spent the last couple of weeks getting together. We've gotten together three or four times, putting together a band. Um, we're basically she's moved from LA here to Nashville, and so I've known and worked with her for a couple of years now. But like she, most of it was trying to just introduce her to all the people here, and I introduced her to a bunch of people. Tom Bukovac introduced her to a bunch of people. She's got some gigs booked with Tom here,
Great.
great.
Yeah.
and we're gonna try and do something in the fall when I have some time. I think we kind of have the nucleus of what it is that we tried a whole bunch of different things and played with some different drummers and different keyboard players and stuff, trying to just find a combination that her and felt had the most chemistry. And I think we pretty much have that now. And we've cut a bunch of stuff, but more so it was just sort of figuring out what we might do in a live setting first more than a record. I think we'll probably get to making a record here soon, but she's also in the process of moving, and so she, but nonetheless, her and I are have been having fun lately, and she's a very good friend, and just a monster, and so that's something that's on the horizon, and then. Yeah, I mean, Luther and I have stuff booked in January and February and some stuff in March of next year, which hasn't like gone on sale yet, but that's plotted out. And then yeah, a bunch of stuff next year with Chris. We are going to come, I think it's June and July into August. We'll be over in Europe.
Oh,
Um
cool.
is what they've told us. And yeah, and beyond that, who God only knows, man. But that's what's up, that's what's fit for print.
I just want to say that's the guy that lives with the advices he gives. You probably said yes to all these projects. That's
Yeah.
why there's so many of
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just, you just figure out how to do it. You just figure out how to, some stuff has to wait then, it just depends. But everything, it's never anything, nothing's ever needing to get stressed about. It's just everything happens when it's supposed to happen. Some things take a while, you know, and but nonetheless, just really grateful and um, you know, I'm amazed, I'm amazed daily, the people that I get to work with and the people that are my friends. Um, it's not lost on me at all. You know, um, as used to it as you can get. It's like you're never, you know, there are times, in particular, it's like working on the Bruce movie, for example, where, I've never had treatment like I had working on that, and having town cars and drivers and all this craziness, and it just makes me laugh now, because it's just like, what the hell is this? It's crazy, you know.
Hollywood star. Yeah.
And some people look at that stuff, and it's really easy, I think, to feel like stuff is owed you, I guess, or something where it's like insecurity quickly turns into this other thing. I'm so fucking amused that, you know, shit is like that. It's just funny to me. It just makes me laugh, you know.
Mm.
It's just like, what? You know, I get to do what? That's crazy.
Cool.
You know, it just makes me laugh, you know.
Mm.
So,
Okay, JD, the question is, where can we find it in the internet for our listeners? Because we'll be kind of wrapping it up. So tell us kind of like.
oh shoot. Well, I guess that's a good question. I mean, like, there's the website where like all the tour dates and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that is, which is simo.fm. But I'm pretty, I'm pretty consistent on social media. Like Instagram, I think is probably the best way. I think they have it linked that every time I put something on Instagram, it goes on Twitter and
Yeah.
Facebook and
Hmm.
stuff at the same time. So like you find me on any of the socials, but like Instagram seems to be the main way that to know exactly what's going on. You
Mm.
know, I'm pretty active on there, you know. So just Google my name, it'll all come
We
up.
will put all the links to YouTube, to Instagram, of course, to Spotify, to um,
Yeah.
um, oh my God. Uh, oh my God, this is so amazing. We're totally or
Thanks, man.
almost totally out of time because like we reached 2 hours. Oh my God, that was a blast. But I
Yeah, thanks so much for spending this 2 hours with us. It's a long time. Thank you. We're super grateful.
It's my pleasure, man. It's a podcast. That's what we do.
on a personal note, I would like to add something. Listen, we're doing this podcast for a couple of years or four or something, but I would never ever dreamed about it that J.D.Simo would be with us. This is like an
Oh, man.
incredible honor. We love your music, and we're like we've been recommending your last albums like many times. I'm sure
Man, thank
we'll
you.
be doing this in the future because you put you're like producing such great tunes, wonderful albums, and it's like so inspiring to hear your story also that the all the journey you've been through. This is like so impressive, so incredible. Um, if you just need anything from us, just let us know. I will be happy. Of course, if you like reach Berlin or Warsaw, we will come. We will buy the ticket and go to see Chris Isaak with you. It will be such an amazing experience.
I actually think I did. I've
You've
seen
seen
Chris Isaac
Chris.
play in
All
Dublin,
right.
and I think you might have been there then. It's been a while. It's been like
I
2015, 16, maybe 17.
Yeah, I mean he loves Ireland, and I know that that's I know we haven't gotten an itinerary yet. We've just gotten the block of time, and you know, I know that Chris is really excited about, you know, because he had his original band Silvertone for, you know, almost 40 years, and his longtime drummer got sick. He's doing better, but he's just not well enough to tour. So that happened, and I guess there was some long-standing thing between him and him and the management and Herschel, the guitar player who had been there for 30 years or whatever. And so that like finally came to an end, and it was a mutual end, but it was like something that had been, I don't know too much about it, but I know it was like a long time coming, I think, on both sides. And the keyboard player, it was the same thing. So it was like, you know, me and the guys had played on two records for Chris with Dave Cobb, and that's how we met Chris and his manager Cheryl, who's awesome, and she also manages Fleetwood Mac and Stevie Nicks, and um, she's a really good friend. And so anyway, I ran it again. You know, I ran into her flying to New York to work on one of the trips where you know, I was going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and so I was flying to New York, and I was sitting next to her. And she said, "How you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to do this Springsteen thing." And she said, "What are you doing next year?" And I was like, "Well, a lot, but what's up?" You know,
Everything.
and she said, "Well, you know, would you maybe want to come out with Chris? And I was like, and she told me that she'd already asked the keyboard player and the drummer from the my friends.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, and I was like, yeah, I think I would do that. And no, because I had to think about it because I've never gone out and like played an artist gig. Like I never had to, first and foremost, and second of all, I never really wanted to. But I was like, man, I love Chris, and it's a great organization, and my friends are in the band, and I was like, yeah, that sounds like fun, and so it's all worked out, you know. It's super fun, but I didn't see that coming.
Okay.
I didn't think twice. I had subbed a gig. Um, Herschel got really sick and he couldn't play a gig about 2 years ago at the Ryman here in Nashville. And they called me like the day before and asked if I could do the show. And I was like, oh, son of a bitch, because that's a lot of stuff to learn on notice. And I was like, yeah. And again, say yes, right? Like I said, yes. I said, yeah, sure. And they took amazing care of me. They took incredible care of me. And it was a lot of fun. So I played that one show with him. Um, but yeah, it was super fun. And I look forward to, anyway, where I was going with this is Chris is so excited about this band. Like he's really thrilled. Like we're like his new toy. Okay. Because
Yeah.
we're because the three of us that are new in the band, Rolly Sally, who's been the bass player in the band forever, is awesome. But like he's just knocked out because we're session guys. So it's like if he says he wants to play something, we go, yeah, let's play it. And it's like, no, now. Then he's like, now? And I'm like, yeah, we can do it.
Hmm.
Play it for us. And then we'll listen to it once and go, okay, let's go play it.
Yeah.
And he's just like, not, he just can't believe that that can happen. So like every day he's like, "Can we play this?" And we're like, "Sure, let's go play it." And so like yeah, he's just like it's we are his new toy. So he like to Cheryl, he's like, "I want to go everywhere. I want to go to Europe again.
Hmm.
I want to go to Australia again. I want to go to Japan." Like he's like, "I want to go everywhere. I want to make a new record. I want to go to South America." Like, and it was like, okay, you know. So
Sounds
anyway,
great.
that's where I was going with that. Long story longer.
Yeah. No, it's a great story. I hope I can catch it when you guys make it
It's a fun
release.
show. It's a really fun show. It's he's an incredible entertainer,
Yeah.
like old school entertainer. It's like a Dean Martin kind of vibe. Like he
Hmm.
he tells stories and jokes and
Yeah.
it's an old school entertainer, and then sings
Yeah.
his ass off.
Yeah, I saw him. I think I checked. It was 2017.
Hmm.
He opened for Hall and Oates of all
Yeah.
the things on a kind of festival blues fest that was happening in Ireland
Hmm.
back then. It doesn't happen anymore
Hmm.
after pandemic. So it was a good one.
Hmm.
I was
Yeah.
going every year, so that's how I ended up.
And I very likely that because that sounds it sound just hearing what they were talking about like all the places we were going to go like
Yeah,
I would be very surprised if Dublin wasn't one of them.
yeah,
You know.
yeah. And if you make it around, as I say, Łukasz is in Poland, lives in Poland.
Yeah.
I live in Berlin, in Germany.
Hmm.
Well, we're both Polish, right?
Yeah.
So, but you probably also
Well,
make it to Germany. That's.
oh, I'm
Yeah.
sure. I'm sure we'll probably do multiple German shows.
Yeah.
I'm sure that probably Hamburg and Berlin
Berlin,
and Frankfurt and
Munich, and yeah, all these usual
Cologne.
ones. Yeah,
Yeah, all the usual ones exactly.
yeah.
There's something
Cool.
weird I noticed about like touring over there. Bavarian audiences are strange, I have to say, when it comes to playing in Germany. Because I've never played to like because we played some big shows in Bavaria and like with lots of people, but like they're very reserved.
Hmm.
Like
Yes,
the song ends and they're like,
yes,
and whereas like you play in Berlin and it's like fucking madhouse, like not like playing in New York City or something like that, or for that matter, playing in Amsterdam or London or or Brussels or Paris or something, but it's like Bavaria is some of the strangest, like big audiences, like thousands and thousands of people, but like,
Yeah.
and like you come off. I remember coming off stage. We did this one. We were on tour with this guy, White Buffalo, who's
Yeah, he's
uh
cool. Sure.
yeah, and
Yeah.
we got done with the show, and I can't remember where specifically. I can picture where the venue, but I can't remember where specific. But we were in Bavaria, and we both came off. Like we came off, we played first, and it just felt like God, that did not go well at
Mm.
all. And like he got off, and he was like, God, I think they hated me. And then like we like all went out to like meet fans, and everybody was like, that was the best show we've ever seen. And it's like, really? You guys don't act like it, you know?
Uh,
So weird.
yeah.
Just talking about German audiences.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So some of it happens like that. And last year, I think in a bit more south, not Bavaria, but Dresden to an ACDC show. And I
Hmm.
was with friends and we're having lots of fun. It's an ACDC show. You go there to jump and sing, all these
Yeah.
classic tunes. And everyone
Yeah.
looked at us like, what are you doing?
That's not the
It's
proper
like,
It's a
behavior.
rock show.
it's an
It's a rock
ACDC
show.
show.
It's a rock show. What are you doing? Jesus.
Yeah.
But
So,
yeah, no. So anyway, all right. I'm glad it's not just me.
No, no, no. We're
yeah.
we
No,
always
no, no.
screaming, so we'll be probably in the first row because that's what we do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
usually
usually.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
our spot.
Well, I have a lot of friends. I've had really good times in Germany. I've had some really good friends still over there, and oh my God, like the first, like we played the Fabrik in Hamburg several times, which obviously is this classic, beautiful
Yeah,
old venue.
yeah,
But one of the first times we played over there, we played the Indra, where the Beatles, the first place the Beatles played in the Reeperbahn, and it was just so fucking cool because the dressing room at the Indra underneath the stage is like where they slept, and it was just like God, and it's like that it still exists, shit like that still exists.
and the
It's
coolest
fun.
neighborhood in Hamburg as well is around that club. It's just like
Oh yeah,
it's just kind of really hip,
yeah,
kind of underground sort of
yeah.
scene, and
It's not the sleazy thing that I guess it once was. It's like become,
yeah,
I guess probably because like tourists want to go where they want to see the Reeperbahn, right? So
yeah,
it's like they've made it into this funky, cool place,
yeah.
artistic-y kind of stuff. I remember one time we were supposed to play on a ship in Hamburg, like a ship
Ah,
docked. We
yeah,
didn't end up. It's one of the only shows we ever like canceled because it was like, how are we going to get our equipment?
On
Like,
the ship.
because it was like all wet and all this stuff. Oh, oh, it was horrible.
yeah.
That's a whole nother story. But yeah, one of the only gigs I ever canceled in my life was in Hamburg because we were supposed to play this old fucking beat up ship from 1920. And it was like,
Wow,
what? Who's gonna pay to
that's
come in this place? And no one did.
wow. That's what it
Well,
is.
gentlemen,
Yeah, we're living.
Was a
It
pleasure.
was a
Was a
pleasure.
pleasure.
bless you. Thanks for having me, and have a wonderful rest of your day, gents. I appreciate you,
Thank
and
you
I can't
so
wait to see
much.
you in person. My pleasure. Anytime.
Honor.
Yeah,
Honor,
thanks so
mate.
much. Hope to catch with you sometime soon. We'll
Yeah.
let you know when everything comes out.
Yeah.
Sound good. Much love, and if you ever need anything, holler. Okay.
Cheers.
Thanks so much. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.
All right,
Cheers.
guys. Take care. See you.
See ya.
Bye bye.